Hey guys, hope you're all doing good tonight. It is actually kind of like stupid late here right now, but I just felt inspired to jump on and do this video because I've been getting a bunch of questions about timelines lately. So I just wanted to do a quick little explanation about how I perceive timelines and how I work with timelines. Um, and who knows, I might end up kind of doing a more expanded version of this later. I'm not really sure, but I wanted to start by just explaining that from the way I perceive timelines, I see all versions of the now happening simultaneously. So to me, when people refer to past lives, um, that just means another timeline that is happening right now simultaneously to this one. And that includes future lives as well. Um, so when I hear past lives, I think more of like an adjacent life that's happening right now. Um, and when you zoom, like the more you zoom out, the more everything in existence kind of becomes one condensed point. But we can kind of get into that in a different way. But for the purpose of this conversation, all timelines are happening simultaneously. And one thing I want to talk about is the way I use this in manifestation, I guess you could use that word, but I think of it more so like manifestation, I think more of like aligning with a more favorable timeline or your highest frequency timeline. And sometimes that can actually be a lot easier because when we use the term manifest, I think we tend to think like, oh, we have to create this magnificent thing out of nothing. But which is true, but it's also not true because from my perspective, there's already a timeline where whatever I want exists. So sometimes it's easier to understand that instead of creating something out of nothing, all you're doing is aligning your current frequency with the frequency of a different timeline that already exists. Does that make sense? So I think of it more like timeline hopping um, than creating something out of nothing. Um, we are all time travelers. We're all changing timelines all the time. Um, so visually, this is kind of how I see it, and sometimes it's helpful. Um, Mathematically, I feel like time is a fractal, and all of existence is a fractal. But when I think of timelines from my human perspective, I think of it like different tributaries of a river. Like if time is a river, then you can just kind of like hop into a different river. Does that help? Does that make sense? It works for me. The other questions I get, let me see, I'm just looking at my notes. So of course, when we talk about timelines, one thing that people really want to know is can you look forward on this timeline? Basically, can you see the future? um, and there's a multifaceted answer to that because, in one respect, yes, you totally can. But the thing is that because we are all changing timelines so frequently, like I mentioned, the the future that you may witness in a moment that you're looking at someone or looking at your own timeline might not be true anymore in the next few minutes if they have it depends so it depends on the person. It depends on the person because if you're looking at a sleeping human who doesn't, and by asleep I just mean someone who's not very conscious, probably lives in a victim mindset and maybe doesn't understand that they create their own reality and believes that their life is a product of their circumstances. That type of person is going to have a more static existence and they're not going to experience as much radical change and hopping around as some of us other people might. Um, Although I do still feel like those people can shift timelines too, but they just tend to not choose to as frequently because they believe that things have to be a certain way. So they'll kind of behave and create their life according to the laws that they perceive to be static laws, even though they are not. Um, so someone like that you could look at and say, like, okay, this is your future. And that would be accurate, probably, because they probably wouldn't change their mind. But for most people, they shift timelines really frequently. Um, the other thing I notice is that what we're looking at more so is like probabilities. So it's easier to look at something in terms of a probability than in terms of a static reality because all of those realities exist, like they're all happening right now. So it's more I feel like I'm kind of like circumambulating the question, but it's not so like you can observe probabilities and then you can ascertain with your own discernment whether you think that person is going to stay in alignment with that timeline or whether they will change their mind. You can also kind of see that too, depending on what level you're at. In terms of your own timeline, honestly, we all know everything because we're all connected to source, which is just infinite knowledge. But it's just a matter of having the ability to step back and go back up the tentacle um, to the space where we're all connected to all knowledge and to just kind of flip through it. So I hope that kind of answers your guys' questions. I'm sure that there will be more questions as a result of me explaining that. Um, and I feel like I'm going to get more information too on how I can articulate that better. I just felt like I should deliver this information right now, even though I'm kind of tired and I'm probably, not explaining as well as I normally would. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please leave me a comment if you have more questions that you want me to expand on specifically, um, or even just a question about something else that I could answer for you guys, or just any sort of feedback on the video. I love to hear. I love connecting with you guys. Feel free to kind of like discuss all of it in the comments if you like. And yeah, I'll put my website and my Instagram, Facebook, and all that good juicy stuff in the description. All right, thank you. Have a good night.